This is The Blockchain Show. The Blockchain Show is a weekly podcast that demystifies and promotes widespread adoption of cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology. You're listening to episode number 11, covering blockchain and cryptocurrency news for the week of July 3rd to July 9th. This week, we welcome Derek Urben from the Coinigy team. Derek is a college student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee who helps with business development and finance for Coinigy, a startup that provides a unified, all-encompassing access point for cryptocurrency-related data. We'll be discussing the halving, digital assets, storage, chronicled, and more. For show notes, visit theblockchainshow.com.
It's kind of like one of these weird things. I remember, 4 years ago, it was always the halvening. Like, something was halvened, and then it was the halvening. I don't know. There's like a picture of Ron Paul with like laser lights flashing where he's saying, it's happening, but it's halvening.
That's so perfect.
Lately, they've been using the phrase halving. Like,
yeah, in the actual code, I believe it says halving. And I think that's where they're trying to shift it more to that. But I think just playing on the play of words and all the big drama that come out in the last years, they're trying to use the usual wording.
So for people like me who have no idea what's happening, like what's going on?
In essence, I guess the reward for each block that gets mined is basically being cut in half. There is some fear about the undecentralization, or in other words, the centralization of some miners. I don't know what the technical risks or fears behind that are. I'm not developer savvy enough to know that, but I do know on, I guess, an economic basis, there is an idea that the supply is going to be not growing at the same rate as it used to be. At the same time, I mean, the usual global demand for any asset is usually going upwards. And so I guess that's kind of why we saw the price hike, why we're seeing more people saying there's going to be not a price hike, but price growth. So I don't know if any of those are going to come to fruition. I don't know if any of them are true. But I guess if you're going to base it off just purely supply and demand, there is a pretty strong case to work with.
Yeah, there's a term in cryptocurrency that's often used a lot that people don't normally use outside of it, that I hear it much more in this space, which is FUD, stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I don't know if this new 51% attack thing that becomes more relevant after the halvening is FUD or not. I mean, there's a certain aspect to it, but I don't really know what starts the launch pad of Bitcoin is the block reward. People are incentivized to verify transactions by a block reward, a certain amount of Bitcoin that they get when the randomly are selected, their block is selected to be added to the blockchain. And so they used to get 25 Bitcoin each time one of these blocks was solved. So it's every 10 minutes, 25 new Bitcoin are created in existence, and that's the protocol. As time goes on, every 4 years, that gets cut in half. So tomorrow as we're talking, or yesterday as you're listening, that'll get dropped down to 12.5, and then every 4 years it'll get cut in half up until I think like 2140 or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in the far future.
Yeah. So, but I think a lot of people believe that this, event is well known in advance, and so everything is priced in at this point. There's not going to be a lot of movement in the immediate term. I'm not really a trader. I don't. That's not my world. That's your world. So we'll see what happens. I think though, now these miners have to pay for their equipment and their electricity. And what a lot of them end up doing is they end up putting that entire block reward on the open market and, take what they can get for them. When the new reduced block reward comes into effect, there's going to be less Bitcoins in the open supply. And that should, in theory, increase the price.
Yeah. If you wanted to keep it at the old aggregate you basically have to double the price every time in order to keep all the miners within the group, because a lot of miners, I mean, there's some people that can't afford it and they're working on pennies of profit and the margin. And so if the block does, I mean, if the reward does drop down significantly, which 50% is extremely significant, and the price doesn't increase, then they're not working with a profitable machine, and a lot of them are going to drop out. And I guess that's where the fear is. I mean, you have a lot of the Chinese mining data centers that work ridiculously efficient, and the power over there is cheap in our terms. And so they can just go on forever and never, and they really don't care about the margins. They're working well above 10%, I would imagine, on the margin side.
So it does this impact the miners more so than just like the everyday Bitcoin enthusiasts?
I would say unless you are really, really caring about how much your assets are worth, and I mean, I don't know, the price fluctuations are going to be like they have in the last 2 weeks, then I wouldn't say it would. I mean, it might inflate the value of your asset. And I think, like you mentioned before, I think it's already priced in for now. But I do think it is more shifted toward the miners in terms of the smaller miner operations do become at risk, is my thought process.
So I guess, Steve, you and I won't be getting into mining anytime soon.
The opportunity to mine Bitcoin has long passed. It's been a long time. You probably would need a few $1 million to start a successful, and it would have to be someplace where there's cheap electricity. In China, they'll have like mining farms that are near some sort of, some sort of dam where they're getting where they have extra electricity that's for free, close to free. Yeah, we won't be mining. Maybe mine all their coins. You can mine some storage.
Yeah, you could go. I guess it's not mining; it's farming, is what Sean put the wording in. I guess you guys aware of my background there in terms of how, when, and what I became involved with the storage.
Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Formal introduction. My name is Derek Urben. I am a current student at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, studying at the Business School of Finance and Economics. And how I got involved in all this crazy mess and fun and extremely smart people that are all involved with it. I actually got involved my junior year of high school, which is not that long ago, however depressing it may seem. And it was through, I guess, just my wanderings through Reddit and other outlets and media outlets that I found this. And I was becoming more and more computer-centric, interested, whether it might be. And I actually stumbled upon one of Sean's posts that he ever mentioned storage in, and I thought it was interesting. And I contacted him and I said, is there anything I can get involved with? I'm just looking for something to do. And I was one of the first about dozen team members on there. And it was all remote, all on Slack. And they were just beginning kind of the coding of the actual software and writing the white paper. And so that was really my first introduction to this whole space. And it was a really unique project. I mean, taking this idea of consensus ownership and kind of distributing everything, whether it be data in this case, or value in Bitcoin's case, or ownership in the case that we're talking about, hopefully in the next couple of minutes is chronicled, really anything. And I didn't get left, but I kind of pulled back from storage in about March of 2015. And they went on and got funding, and now they're in Atlanta, full-time operation. They're doing well. And again, of course, they got invited to Microsoft's kind of Azure platform, which is exciting news. And then kind of overlapping the two, again, I was just wandering through kind of the Bitcoin computer communities, and I found Coinigy's kind of first announcement of their trading idea in this platform that would basically connect all exchanges. And again, I did the usual looking through their website, signing up with their product. And I remember I scrolled down to the footer and it said they were located in Milwaukee, of all places. And I mean, with these projects, you're usually seeing San Francisco, London, Hong Kong, not really any Midwestern or Chicago kind of Milwaukee area. So I sent them an email saying if I'm at all helpful or at all value, I can help out with any kind of support, public relations, anything I can really do. like most startups, it's most things you do everything. And so I got brought into there, and it was kind of 4 people at the time. The 2 guys, Rob and William, who are Milwaukee and Johnson Creek, respectively. And then we actually had a gentleman in southern France that we are still working closely with. And they really just started building out the platform, got some users on, went to a paid platform. And now we're really kind of transforming what was once just kind of an API gatherer to trade to all of the exchanges around the world to something very much larger than that. And we kind of want to we've used the lingo of kind of becoming like the Bloomberg or the E-Trade of the entire blockchain markets. And the idea of that we want to make it not as complicated as it seems to everybody. And I think we all believe that the traditional finance markets, whether it be foreign currency, whether it be debt and bonds, whether it be equity, are all going to come over to this platform for all the reasons that we all are pretty aware of. And so we're kind of positioning ourselves as much as we can, not to be kind of the underlying architecture and kind of the things that these all run on, but more so of a platform on top that we can service all of these things. And we're kind of agnostic to any exchange or anything that's going on below us. So we kind of shift the risk factor away from us, and we kind of act as a far more user-friendly, far more inviting, and a far more kind of value-added service. So there's a lot of interesting things we're looking at doing, and I guess that's where we're at right now.
Was able to look briefly at Coinigy, and it's some pretty cool stuff. I mean, you can get prices for like 45 different exchanges, I think. There's an API, so you can, if you need to pull in any price to like a Google spreadsheet, it's all baked right into the system. Some really neat stuff. How are you handling like the legal aspects of that? I know, things are kind of up in the air in the States. Based out of Milwaukee.
So yeah, I mean, with the kind of the initial ruling from New York, and that they really kind of put the brakes on it for now, which from one aspect, I mean, that is kind of just stopping everything where it is, but another aspect that is enabling the government to kind of step back and say, okay, what is this? What can we do with it? And again, I mean, it's kind of familiar. The public sector is going to move and kind of lag below and kind of behind these new kind of technologies that are coming out. But I do think they all realize, and I do think all countries realize and all governments realize that this is beneficial to them if they can really cooperate with it. And it's not so much as destructive as constructive and kind of innovative. And so right now we actually don't handle funds, since the API is just more of a trigger event. And so we are not handling any funds. So we don't have the risk there. Again, this is something that we do plan on moving into with this kind of new model we're coming out with. And again, that's going to take a lot of legal kind of maneuvering and kind of looking through all the. Right now, there's really no federal ruling. It's only really state by state. And that's something that we are trying to play a very good dance with. I mean, I wish there was some kind of federal ruling that we could just do one and done, and that would make us safe for all 50 states, but unfortunately there isn't at this point. I do think that's coming, but we really can't wait for that. And so right now, like, we don't have to have the KYC or the AML. The exchanges still hold the funds. So I guess that's kind of the long-winded answer to the fact that we do not handle funds and we don't have that risk profile on top of us.
Right. So you don't actually handle any funds. You don't do any money transmitting services, but you do allow people to work with, what are some of the biggest exchanges that your platform works with?
So, I mean, of the top, I guess, 20, I think we support all of them. Speaking volume wise. So I mean, yeah, BitConnect is the number one right now, just for kind of all of the trading. And again, the China markets are huge. So right now, if I remember correctly, we did about $8.5 million in volume year to date. And when I say that, is basically the volume that was placed through Coinigy on these exchanges. So these are the volume that our users are finding value added in our platform, and going forward and ordering through Coinigy and charting through Coinigy and using our different applications. And it's impressive growth. I mean, month over month, we've gotten some really, really good growth, both on the user side, both on the revenue side, both on the kind kind of volume side as well. And I guess going kind of the suite that we're trying to build out as a platform. I mean, and one of the really interesting ones we have that we've been really getting good feedback on is we call it the arbitrage matrix. And it's quite literally just a grid that compares, let's just say, Bitcoin and United States dollar across every single exchange that we support, which is right now about 51, I believe. And it basically finds every single arbitrage opportunity out there. So it compares every single market to every other market. And with the size of the market right now, I mean, this is only barely a $10 billion market. I mean, that's very small on a relative basis. And so there's a lot of arbitrage and a lot of market inefficiencies going on. And that's something that our users find extremely, extremely powerful. And that's kind of the cool app from my point of view. But we also are building out, a lot of other kind of applications on the technical analysis side. Because I mean, this market is driven kind of by the chartists, if you will. And there is a lot of news aspects. So we do have a kind of an aggregate news platform. And these are all things we're building out. Rob and William are all hands on deck. So those are kind of the platform updates right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Some of the big value adds that you guys have, besides just the R platform or the R sheet, is you have back data for how long, or?
So yeah, we have a lot of data. I want to say, and I might get corrected when I get off and ask the guys, but nearing 4 billion records of trades. So that is when it was like the second timestamp, and then how much it was and at what price it was. And we've seen some really good and promising kind of demand for this data. Because if you look at any algorithm trading, any modeling that you want to do with any kind of institutional guys, is they just love this data to put into their models and kind of feed it. And there's also the idea of we have all this historical data sitting there, but we also have all the future data as well, in terms of moving forward, and we can just feed this through an API. And we kind of are plugging it as a universal API. We do all the back-end work and collecting every single exchange in the world and every single asset on this platform, and we can just feed it out in one single kind of access point. And I think that's extremely powerful. Because I mean, if you think about, let's just say hypothetically, you have some of the banks starting to move into this, and kind of some of the alternative asset managers, which I mean there already are coming in. They're not going to want to go out and deal with all these kind of micro exchanges around the world. Some of them which they can't even access, some of the Chinese ones. And if they have a single point of access that they can go to and basically say, hey, I want one turnkey kind of solution, we are that solution. And I guess from an economic and finance standpoint, a lot of these exchanges, if you put like $1 million order in, they're not going to get filled at a very good price. And so as the market grows bigger and bigger and there's kind of consolidation, I mean, we're already seeing Kraken acquire exchanges. I do think having an idea of that we could go out and basically find the best price and basically become an extremely large pool of efficiency in the market and liquidity in the market. I think that is one of the most powerful things that we could do.
Where do you see like the digital asset space going? Like what are going to be these tradable digital assets that don't exist yet but will in the future?
Yeah, that's something I have been pondering, whether it be on the long drives, whatever it might be. I think all of traditional finance, so kind of guess walking through them, equities, so just a simple stock of Apple or Google or whoever it might be. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Move over to this. If you can just have a stock hash key, if you will, moving it over here, tokenizing it. And there's a few companies out there that are working on that, and that's something that we aren't going to do directly, but that's something that we could trade. Like I said, we really want to stay kind of in the platform area that we could pull all of these things in and not be directly affected by one of them. So I do think equities are really moving quickly, and if you look at kind of the company itself called Digital Asset Holdings, I mean, they have extreme funding, and they're already going out to the world exchanges around the world saying you've got to get your platform on this. And you saw NASDAQ already do a pilot program with it. And then currencies, which is a far bigger market. There is a lot of talk already with governments about digitizing their currency. I mean, a lot of the Fed governors have already brought it up, and I do think that's going to quickly move. I mean, there is this
It's already
connotation that
digital. Yeah, in most currencies, it's all most of the like most of M2 is there's so much more digital currency than there is actual physical cash.
oh
So
yeah, in terms
but
of like the kind of the reserve ratio, if you will.
right.
But I guess I should split digital cash from kind of digital asset and kind of blockchain tracked kind of assets, and moving it into this kind of idea of everybody has this connotation that these assets on the blockchain, whether it be Bitcoin or whatever it might be, are prominently kind of bad and untraceable. And that's just because the first iteration of it was an extremely anonymous currency. Excuse me, but you can make an extremely controlled blockchain, privatize it under a government, and then it's basically you could trace every single fund moving around within your jurisdiction. Now, I don't think that's what the original kind of purpose of it was, but I think that is kind of the thing that the governments are going to look at.
Yeah, it's so like amazing how the original purpose, and when Satoshi envisioned it, it was like, I have an idea for a electronic cash system, completely trustless, peer to peer, and that was the idea. And everybody, just ignored it. These are, cipher punks, and they just like thought that he was out of his rocker and ignored him for months and months until he produced, the white paper and the prototype, and got one guy, Hal Finney, I think, to actually mine Bitcoin with him. And but I just can't imagine that the where it's going, just whether that was envisioned to how quickly it can go from being a laughing stock to NASDAQ to governments wanting to use it. Everybody wants to get on the blockchain now, or went from Bitcoin to blockchain to distributed ledgers and now digital assets. I wonder if there's going to be a new name, or if like digital assets is the big thing.
Yeah, it is an interesting kind of transformation. And I mean, going back to your idea of just the quickness of this, I mean, I think I'm a fairly young, quick moving person, but even in this space, I feel overwhelmed with how fast everything is just exploding, and trying to keep up with all of it, both from, I guess, a personal just knowing about it aspect, and also from a business aspect with Coinigy, just trying to keep up with all these things, and not having the bandwidth to do it on the basis that, I mean, everybody wants to. So I think it is interesting, kind of the transformation and the speed at which it went. I mean, the internet was adopted quickly, but this is an entirely different level.
Yeah, it's because we already have the internet.
Yep.
With having the internet already, we can move much more quickly. But yeah, I mean, do you think Coinigy? So Coinigy will just handle, will just handle the a gateway to different exchanges and different things of that nature. They won't actually be producing their own like synthetic digital assets or anything like that, or at this time, anyways.
I mean, at this time, no. I mean, who knows? We might issue stock on it for all we know in the future. But no, I don't think there's any direct issuance of any kind of asset at this point. There was very lighthearted discussions about it, but I guess, I mean, you could fund it through that, kind of like storage did in the earliest days. But I don't think that's kind of what we want to go down that path. But who knows? I mean, there might be. One of the ideas that we were thinking about, that I was brainstorming up, is kind of building a community that could just do kind of bot trading, in terms of, yeah, I mean, there's shared communities out there that kind of post the Python scripts and codes of these things. But what if we could build something integrated into our platform, that is kind of using the Open Bazaar kind of platform, in terms of kind of a peer-to-peer retail, or peer-to-peer Amazon, if you will, and that these people could sell their bots. You don't sell the code, because obviously they can just go off, copy and paste it and run it themselves, but you almost run like a commission off of your bot. And I don't know what the regulation space here is, but it was just kind of one of the dreams, or kind of the ideas I had, is that we could use payments to that. I don't know, it might be just good old Bitcoin itself, where we could actually issue a Coinigy coin, if you will, that could be used in this platform that people could trade. Basically trading, they would trade value through trading strategies, and then I guess the most valuable trading strategies would find more value. So that was one of the ideas we had. I don't know if it's gonna. I mean, I don't think we need our own digital asset in the future, but who knows? I mean, you have people thinking that Walmart's gonna have their own digital asset. So,
Hey guys, speaking of assets, I'd like to introduce Sarah to the conversation.
Hey.
Hey.
What a great intro. First, I have so many questions for you. First of all, I want to ask who we is. I'm sorry if I missed that, but I was just literally having a conversation about why doesn't that exist? That sounds so perfect. What a neat thing. We were just talking about Beats headphones. I don't know what bots are either, what you're talking about. But yeah, like an open bazaar, like you can have a peer-to-peer. It seems to make all the sense in the world to me. But before I start going nutty with my imagination, can you tell me who we is?
in terms of Coinigy,
No, I thought you were saying. I know that you work with a lot of academics, right?
yeah, I'm a student right now, and I'm surrounded by all of it. So,
Oh, you're the perfect person to talk to. I bet you just steeped in it. Steeped in ideas, steeped in all sorts of like blooming, blossoming potential.
yeah, and actually, it's coincidental and funny you bring it up. I actually was fortunate enough to construct, kind of line up and write a independent kind of research study for next semester at Milwaukee, kind of going over the entirety of the blockchain, so if you will. So not looking at it from I'm looking at it from an academic standpoint in terms of just kind of the brute force of research I'll be doing, but applying the idea of distribution and decentralization to basically everything.
Oh, wow. Is that going to be accessible to anyone?
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to publish it or something.
Are you going to make it simple enough for
advisor-
people like me to get it too? Or do you have to be a giant brainiac?
I'll be sure to have it read many times by people that don't even know what.
Cool.
How to
You send it
spell
my
blockchain,
way.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. But I am lucky to have the opportunity to do that. So I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on
Yes,
that.
please do, for real. I really do want you to keep me updated on that, because when you say we, like I kind of, even though I got your name wrong, God forgive me. I did know that you're kind of in an academic in this world, and when you said we were having the idea, I wonder, are you part of some group? That's the rest of that we?
No, I guess I was using the context of Coinigy at that point.
Oh, the
So
royal
it's
we.
Coinigy here. Yeah.
Okay. I hope Walmart never gets a coin. I hope that Walmart gets evolutionarily phased out. That's my hope.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, they probably are, even with Amazon
Right?
around.
I mean, who wants a Walmart coin that when you have the opportunity to go to this bitchin' bazaar you're talking about?
Have you been on Open Bazaar yet, Sarah, or no?
No.
So do you know what Open Bazaar is?
Nope.
So it's this really cool project that it's an open source project that just came out, I think 2 months is when they went live. And it's like a peer-to-peer eBay or Amazon.
Oh, this is the answer to my dream. Like, maybe there's a person out there who's going to sell me their motorhome for Bitcoin? And they'd be in the bazaar?
That's right.
Oh! Cool.
So you can see all sorts of, somebody creates their store on Open Bazaar, and anybody can connect to it. So there's no central point of failure. No government can step in and shut it down. Well, I don't want to, poke a stick at the government, but because it's it's a decentral system. So it makes it really resilient against those type of censorship. So if you want to sell something, you can do it on Open Bazaar.
Wow. I want to get a store on an Open Bazaar.
Do it. I'll help you out with the store.
Oh, God, I love having connections. I got connections all over the place now. That's so neat.
So here's something that's kind of interesting in the news. They've been making a little bit of news lately. There's a company called Chronicle. And the reason why I find it interesting is not exactly what they're doing, because I'm not really in the sneaker market. I don't like buy
counterfeit
collectible
market.
sneakers. Yeah, that market to me isn't very interesting. But what's interesting to me about it is they just announced that they're going to be using the Ethereum blockchain. Before, they didn't even tell you what blockchain they were using. But you can, so they work with like Reebok, and they build a counterfeit tag that's in, or a sensor in the sneaker. So anybody with a smartphone can go and scan the tag, and it'll tell them whether that sneaker is legitimate or counterfeit. And the amazing thing about it is that people who use this have no idea that it's using Ethereum. It just works. They don't have to
Like
they don't
magic.
have to have like magic. They don't have to have a discussion about whether, the Federal Reserve is a good thing,
Yeah.
or whether, that doesn't have to enter into the conversation.
It's like you flip the switch, the light comes on.
I scan this tag, it tells me whether these are legit shoes or not. And that to me is amazing. I think,
Yep.
One of the things in the space that's going to become more and more relevant is these services that use blockchain, but nobody knows that they do.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. You should just do it.
That's Nike. This is Reebok.
I didn't even realize I made that joke. I like that for all sorts of things, though. I mean, like, I think you even said it before. You could just hold up your phone and find out if your coffee was actually brought to you in a fair fashion or on the backs of slave children. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think that when you have an immutable ledger, there are so many things you can do with it. From in Derek's space, it's just making sure that the securities that people say they actually own. In that world, as it currently is, you may have bought a stock from E-Trade. E-Trade really doesn't really have the physical stock, just have it on their books. A holding company has that stock, and they may have actually there may be 2 or 3 people who are all claiming ownership of that stock at any moment in time. We don't really know what the exposure is to these different companies.
And it's actually interesting, kind of the origination of that. And the fascinating thing is that the legacy kind of systems and ideas that are still around in this space, the idea of clearing and settling a stock. So when I go on and I say, okay, I'm going to buy part ownership in Apple, for example, I go buy a stock. I don't technically own that for 3 days. And it's funny because that originated from the idea that I believe I'm quoting it right, but the Dutch stock market was kind of the first big one out there in the East, kind of the Dutch East India Trading Company was the first one to issue a stock. And you would buy a stock, you'd have to register it with London, which is kind of the big financial kind of currency sector. And so that was how long it took for the message, and whether it be the horse or whatever it might be, to get to London. It was 3 days on a boat. And we're still using the idea of the T or trade plus 3 is the time you need to settle a stock.
That is hysterical.
Just ludicrous. And the idea that in that period of 3 days, that's 72 hours, there is a lot of legal risk. That if the counterparty is fraudulent, there's a lot of things that can come up there. And this is one of the big things that Blythe Masters, the person that runs Digital Asset, is really trying to fix, is that if you could have instant settlement, it takes away a bunch of middle market or middle party people, clearinghouses for the biggest one. But it also frees up a lot of capital in terms of when I buy this stock and the clearinghouse has to clear it and the broker has to clear. There's a lot of lag time in there. If you can clear that up, it becomes a far more efficient system. Which I still find it funny that we're basing ownership of a stock or whatever it might be.
That's extremely funny. So what are those middlemen doing in those 3 days that they otherwise would have been sailing the seas to bring the parchment
taking your money?
For the most part, not doing anything. Actually, I think they're still following the law that you have to wait 3 days to actually technically own it. Because clearing a stock, it's all automatic. There's no person that's making sure that this was sold and it was actually bought.
Oh, we are a funny species.
Yeah. they're really not doing much except for waiting around to make sure 72 hours pass.
Waiting around hoping nobody figures out their gig.
Yeah. So clearinghouses are kind of the ones that I think are very, very scared of this, specifically in the finance sector. Is that, I mean, why do they need to exist if I can just go out and buy part ownership in a company from somebody and not have it instantaneously? So I think that's one of the big kind of disruptions.
They'll have to find something else to do. I'm sure that there's plenty of other worthwhile things to do.
You would think the smart ones can adapt.
Yeah, right? Survival of the fittest. There must be so many new positions being created in the blockchain. I was actually kind of having my thought was, so you're a student in this world. I wonder what sort of course titles there are now that regarding the blockchain technology, or that I would never have even heard of.
Yeah, actually, I was listening to the previous podcast with, I believe it's David, and at UConn, there's courses popping up. I mean, there's no that are specific about this yet, I guess, mostly because most people don't know about it yet, for better or worse, or at least in an in-depth being able to teach it fashion. But I think it is coming up more and more. Even just walking around the business school, you'll get kind of on the TV, whether it be the kind of people are talking about more and more.
You have heard people talk about this on TV?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched CNN at work or CNBC, and it's probably weekly now that they come on saying Bitcoin rose whatever percent it is, and there's big investment funds moving into it now. So there's definitely a lot of coverage on the financial side of it.
I'm glad to have some people on the inside. I would not know that. I'm unplugged.
And going back to the non-financial part, like you're talking about, even like a coffee, or kind of the tracking the bean to the brewing of coffee. One of the interesting ones is kind of art, if you will, and checking. I believe they call it the provenance of an art piece, and making sure that every person that owned this was making sure that it was real and not a piece of counterfeit art. And there's a lot of projects popping up around that, because I mean, art is such an inefficient. I mean, there's not a very big market out there to buy and sell original pieces of art, and so even with extremely, extremely slow kind of markets, excuse me, whether it be art or real estate titles, there's a lot of potential with this.
Yeah, I think there's really some amazing things that can be done with art. I don't really know what exactly these. I've seen some of these companies out there, and I haven't researched everything that they do. But you could maybe like sell a piece of artwork on the blockchain, and you could like actually sell the rights to it to people. So if like they wanted to, they would have like an art DAO, I guess you would say. And somebody could then, decide if they wanted to do another 1,000 run of this print that they bought, maybe, if they wanted to. You can track. So every time somebody buys, every time that art changes hand, the digital asset on a blockchain, or the tokenized version of that art also then changes hands. And so you can see from person to person over, vast periods of time where that, piece of art was, who owned it. And so exactly its history. And that's really amazing, because it's something really hard to do, because you have experts and art experts, and they're not really that good at picking out forgeries. So this would be something that would take away the stolen artwork and the forgery market, which is really cool. That
is very cool, very interesting. I don't know if you had kind of put this concept in there, but it seems like it should be in there even for me. Like, for example, I thought this was hysterical personally, that I learned from a friend of mine who's living in Taos. When I lived in Taos, I actually was a halfway functioning artist. But I learned that my art has been sold in Taos unbeknownst to me, which is fabulous. I mean, it's great. I'm flattered that happened on planet Earth. But gee, wouldn't that be awesome if that were like some little a smart contract out there where if I sold it and I said, yeah, you can do whatever you want with that, since I'm an artist. I'm not a person with a business mind. Somebody who has a business mind and looks at this particular piece of art might have lots of potential. They could use it in many different ways. Just like you were talking about, musicians can have micro payments on things. Man, I'd be really happy to sell some art. If somebody wanted to go out and reproduce it and use it in different ways and put it in, I don't even know, in their billboard for something, that's cool, because I got my little micro payment thing right there in my smart contract.
Yeah, maybe, every time your piece of artwork changes hands, you get royalty on it.
Yeah. Down for that.
It was interesting you brought up the idea of just changing the ownership. I mean, I can't remember the name of the story now, but it's the island of something. It was some old, I don't know if it's
Yep.
a non-fictional
That's what I thought
idea.
too.
The Island of Yapper now.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
The idea that you really don't have to transfer the physical anything. You just have to agree upon who owns it. And the value of that asset is directly linked with the ownership, and you just have to change the ownership. So going back to what I'm up to at Coinigy, one of the exchanges or the unique exchanges that we support is one that trades gold on the blockchain. So if I'm sitting here in Madison and somebody's over in Singapore and they want to buy gold from me, it's extremely illogical, inefficient, and makes a lot of pain to literally ship them gold. But if I can just transfer the ownership of it instantaneously, then they own the gold. And if everybody in the market can agree upon that, then it's the exact same thing of me actually shipping him a bar of gold. But as long as he just owns the ownership of it, then he can sell off the ownership and therefore trade it.
And it doesn't matter where in the world that gold is sitting. But
Exactly.
there must be a hunk of gold somewhere with the serial number on it that you can.
Some vault or sitting in the mountains of Switzerland. But as long as they can prove it's there and they can prove who owns it, and the rest of the market is in consensus with that, then it's an extremely efficient market.
Yeah. Neato.
Yeah, we covered the island of Yap on the show on like episode 1 or episode 2 or something like that. Such a fascinating island. They have these big stone discs that weigh maybe like 2 cars. They're incredibly heavy, and so they don't really exchange these stone discs because they're too heavy. So they kind of just stay where they're at. And instead, everybody in the community decides that one day, Derek owns the stone, and everybody the next day, Sarah owns that stone. So they don't move the stone. They just move their mind over who owns what. It got to the point where there was one trip where the islanders of Yap were taking us. They have to quarry the stone from a far off island, and on the way back there was a shipwreck, and the stone dropped to the bottom of the ocean. And when they made it back, they said like, oh, and we dropped this stone at the bottom of the ocean. They said, oh, great. Well, you own that stone. And so there's this stone that nobody's seen for hundreds of years, but yet they all know who owns that stone at the bottom of the ocean.
So quite literally was the first consensus distributed ledger.
Right.
I don't know how much this has to do with anything really, except I can report that my dad says that the ladies on the island of Yap don't wear shirts often. So a pretty cool island.
How many stones to get a topless lap dance?
You don't have to pay a thing.
Free.
It's all, you just go to the island and they're all over the place. Sounds like a cool place, honestly.
Does anyone know where it is?
It's near Guam.
Okay. So
very tiny.
South Pacific. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a cool project that Derek started, that Derek worked on before, and that was storage.
And spread across a network of other users' devices.
Yes, that's peer-to-peer distribution. Continue.
But they can't look at any of our files because they only have tiny scrambled pieces of them.
Encrypted sharding. Clark with the assist. Great. Go on.
But we can look at any of our files anytime, anywhere, even though they're not actually on any of our devices.
Yes. That's everything.
So it's all on our phones, even though it sort of isn't.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Basically, as far as how I understand it, is you can actually sell out your extra disk space.
Yep.
And earn a fee. What was the name for the fee? They don't call it mining, but what do they call it?
Oh, so you basically farm out your disk, and I guess from what I can remember, because we were some of the people that kind of decided the terminology there, is that you're, I hate using the word, but you're cultivating your disk and basically making it available for other people to come in and store things in there. In this case, it'd be data. And so you'd farm out your space, and then just like the ledger itself is kind of shredded among the market or shredded among the network and kind of distributed, this data is digitally shredded, if you will, quote unquote. And there's a lot of aspects of pros with this. I mean, obviously the security, if you breach a person's computer, you're going to have one encrypted shred of some piece of data. You're not going to have the entire data piece. And it's also a peer-to-peer network, so it's faster in theory because you're getting downloads from everywhere, not one single place. And there's also a lot of other benefits, but the idea that I would be storing somebody else's data on my computer was also one of the things that was kind of hard to get past for a lot of the kind of early pilot testers, if you will. But I guess from the laws of encryption, I mean, if you have an encrypted piece of data, there's nothing you can really do with it. And one of the security kind of things they put in place is that there'd be what they call a heartbeat, if I remember correctly, that would go out in the network every millisecond or whatever it might be. And then if any shred or piece of this data was whether it be disappeared, so even if the computer just turned off instantly, or it was breached in some way, they basically kick that node or that computer, whoever it was, off the network. And since there's replication in this system, they would just go find another piece of this data, some shred somewhere else in the world, copy it, and then shoot it back out in the network. And so there's a lot of parallels with kind of the torrenting kind of technology, which again is popular for kind of pirating videos and whatever it might be, but it's also extremely powerful because you don't need to store all your data in one single place. And so there's a lot of security benefits there.
Is that something akin to I'm going to need your help, Ethan. This is it, I can't remember exactly who did this. Was it the SETI Institute who used to get people's PlayStations?
Oh yeah, my PlayStation 3 was always set to SETI at home.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of similar.
It's very, very similar, and there's a lot of parallels. But instead of SETI, which is using processing power, so that was just using the power of your computer. This is using the storage of your computer. But yes, very, very similar. But just using a new kind of technology for it. SETI was for like Hubble images, right? For like space and deep space images.
Yeah, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
There you go. That's the acronym.
Yeah. Deep stuff.
And there was also one that was like a folding at home that was folding genes or something.
Yeah, that was for mapping I think it was the genome.
Oh, there was another thing like that?
Yeah, using kind of collective processing power.
So what group of people do they reach out to? Not the PlayStation people.
Anybody.
Oh.
Because I mean, they were rewarded just in the same way Bitcoin miners are rewarded in Bitcoin. They would reward them with some kind of asset they made up. A little bit more of a royal and prestigious way to go about it, because you're trying to basically cure cancer.
Is that the intention of it?
Yeah, I believe it was started by some university. I forgot what university it was, though. But yeah, it was basically to figure out protein folding, and one of the ancillary kind of benefits from this was that you could find kind of, and again, I'm not a scientist, I might be getting this wrong, but kind of the mutations in chromosomes, I believe.
Yeah, or so their hope was that they could find that.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it didn't come to fruition.
Not yet. There hasn't been any huge announcements that I know of.
Yeah, this is completely not Bitcoin related either. Just like the ladies on the island of Yap. But the more I read about that, the more I'm starting to hear interesting things about DNA. and how it's not like what we thought it was. It's not necessarily just as simple as we were sort of forcing it to be. But then again, that's neither here nor there. Still very fascinating. I didn't know that was happening with mapping genomes and whatnot.
What do you think about the DAO?
Right, actually, so I guess going back, was it now? About 3 weeks it is now, or 2 weeks. I was actually visiting family in Utah, and I got off the plane, and that's when I first saw it come up on kind of the Reddit feed, and I was very confused as to what was going on. Because I knew what the DAO was and kind of the idea of this kind of the first initial version or draft of it was kind of a venture firm and kind of investing in all these different projects coming out. And not knowing all the technical side of it, I was extremely confused at first, and I needed some clarification. I read through a lot of Reddit comment threads and kind of going back to Vitalik, and having met Vitalik for a very, very brief time in Chicago when I was kind of with the storage team, and he was just starting up the Ethereum kind of project. He's an extremely smart individual, kind of a scary smart individual. And some of the recommendations he had in terms of kind of hard forking this back and reverting it, I guess my personal opinion might be completely wrong, but I think from a very top line looking at it, I mean, yeah, it's beneficial because there is some of the money coming back. But I think, have you guys read kind of the letter from the individual that was able to kind of go into the code and basically take it, drain it?
The attacker or
yeah,
the exploiter, that guy? Was that verified to be from him, or was that just
I believe so. I believe the what's the TBG key, whatever that is. I think it is. But there was interesting points in that in terms of, I mean, the DAO worked perfectly as it was supposed to, and nothing went wrong. I mean, there was just code there that could be exploited, and so it was. And so there was an opportunity, and they took it. And so I guess that was kind of an interesting point of view. And obviously, the market didn't like it because Ethereum's asset basically almost went to zero. And I mean, it's rebounding, and I think Ethereum's a much bigger project than just that. But I do think there was long-term effects from that in terms of kind of halting. Kind of the mainstream media went buckaroo on this and very, very negative as expected with this kind of thing. But I think nobody in the media kind of realized, I mean, it worked perfectly. I mean, it wasn't hacked per se. They didn't break in and do all these horrible things. I mean, they just exploited a piece of code that they were able to.
Again, we're thinking about it in old ways.
Yeah.
What was this scary smart guy? Oh, I'm sorry. Finish what you're...
I don't know who he is. I haven't looked into that very much, but
She was asking about Vitalik.
Yeah, the guy in Chicago who was scary smart you worked with.
He's the creator of...
Oh, yeah. So Vitalik was... So the Bitcoin Summit, I guess it was in Chicago in 2014. And so I went down with the storage team at the time, which was Sean and a couple of individuals that joined us. And we were just walking around, and Sean knew Vitalik just from kind of being in the space, from the first people in the space. And we were able to have a quick bite to eat with him, and he was just kind of talking about Ethereum. And at that point in time, I had no idea what he was talking about. And I don't think anybody had any idea what he was talking about in terms of these contracts that if the entire network itself recognizes these contracts and they're on a computerized system, then they can be executed, and kind of the action items within the contract can be executed upon any terms. So I could sign a contract saying if the temperature tomorrow reaches $75, I'll transfer $10 to your account. And if I sign that and the market sees it, then I can't refute it. And that's really what it came down boiling down to. But at the time, he said it in very eloquent terms that I did not understand at all. But yeah, Vitalik Buterin, he is the founder and kind of president of Ethereum. That's the whole project.
Yeah, I look at the DAO and I understand the people who kind of who say that like this contract was made. There was, everybody knew going into it that it was a beta type deal, and any sort of malfeasance or any sort of problem with it, it'll be on them. But at the same time, I look at like people outside the space, and they're like, well, it's very clearly a theft. And it's kind of like I see that it's not like an easy, from my perspective, I don't think it's one side or the other. It has like it just seems like it's a lose-lose situation. You either let a thief get away with stealing money, or you compromise the integrity of the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, and that is a difficult place to be in from my perspective.
Yeah, I would agree, and I really don't know what the right answer was or is, because I mean, like Sarah said, I mean, this is an entirely new, I guess you can call it an organization as it's called, but I guess just like an entity or like a collection of assets or people, even though there's no people controlling it really. And I don't know if the mindset going into it was correct, and I don't know if the mindset is still correct with the idea of that these new organizations. I mean, who owned the assets within it? And you would say, okay, everybody involved, but I guess then this guy technically stole, quote unquote, from everybody, even though it was inside one central entity. So I'm entirely not sure.
If he stole, can't we? Wouldn't that quote unquote money be easily traceable? No.
So with the way the DAO was set up, there was you could split. You could like take your DAO tokens out of the main DAO into a child DAO. Your DAO tokens, for every 100 DAO tokens you have, equivalent of 1 ether. So you could, for every 100 DAO tokens that you split out, there's 1 ether that goes with it. So the exploiter joined a split, and through an exploit in the code was able to keep withdrawing his Ethereum, his Ether, without his balance actually being updated. So it'd be like if you went to the ATM and you put your card in and said, "Give me $200," and the ATM said, "Sure," and you took your $200, and then you said, "Well, give me another $200," and the ATM didn't update your balance first and gave you another $200, and you kept doing that over and over again until you had $50 million worth. That's basically what the exploit was.
Dude, how many times did that guy have to click?
It's a computer program. I think he did it at like 230 ether at a time. I think did it like 39 times. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
You don't sound like a guy who's guessing. I was just going to compliment you on your thorough investigation. Congratulations on that. I actually even understood you.
Well, I'm misremembering probably, but it's close to something like that.
How did you three first initially get introduced to this whole space?
Steve.
Totally, Steve.
Yeah. Did I ever ask you, Steve, how you did?
I think I was on a poker forum. On
Perfect.
The finance, business, and investing portion of it. I think it was like 7 cents or 10 cents a Bitcoin. And there was discussion over whether this was legitimate or not. I was attracted to it I was attracted to it because I like new technologies, and this was one that I thought was very, very interesting and had a good chance of becoming. I had no idea of what it actually would become. I thought, I had very mistaken beliefs about its money. This whole digital asset stuff, didn't envision it at all. So it's really amazing. It wasn't until Ethereum that when I saw, the work in progress and the actual, I hate the term smart contract, but the ability to build applications on top of a blockchain is just, amazing.
Why do you hate that term?
Smart contracts, because it's just a bad term. It doesn't really define what it is. People
got
think,
the word smart in it.
Yeah, it's got the word smart in it, and they're dumb. Like, they're not smart. They're dumb. They're incredibly dumb. They just do what it's programmed to do. If the program is programmed wrong, like, it does the wrong thing. They're dumb contracts. They're not even contracts. They're code. They're
Should call it
they're
dumb
not
code.
smart. They should call it dumb code. I mean, but we already have a name for that. It's just a program. So it's a program on top of blockchain. They also call them dApps.
Oh, that's good to know. I've said that before and did not know what I was saying.
Yeah, but...
well, wait, what is that an acronym? dApp?
A decentralized app.
Oh, okay.
So, but, what do you think of the term smart contracts, Derek?
It's like smartphone. I mean, it's still it's only as smart as the person that's using it.
At least a smart contract isn't listening in on your conversations.
I mean, it could be exploiting the contract terms, but who knows? But yeah, I mean, even with the recent events, like you said, I mean, it's only as smart as the person that's going to be constructing it. And a contract is only as strong as the lawyer in many cases wrote it. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I guess from a legal standpoint, I mean, they are contracts in the fact that there's two parties considering terms, and they agree upon those terms, and they agree upon the ramifications of if one of these terms comes true, or if they're broken, or if an event happens. But again, I mean, yeah, it is just code, but you could also say just a paper contracts and writing on a piece of paper. But I guess the contract idea is coming from a very abstract idea that there has to be action taken upon terms or an event agreed upon by people. More
of a marketing term?
Well, yeah, everything in this space is more of a marketing term. But going back to the whole money aspect, I mean, that's the big, when I pitched Coinigy, kind of the business plan of it to the university for these competitions that we got some good coverage for. I mean, the first question I got even before a lot of the presentation is, how does this thing have any worth? I mean, why can't I hold it? And that's one of the huge kind of humps I think is going to take a long time to get over. And I always, whether it be a good idea or a bad idea, whether it be political or not, but I take out a $20 bill and I say, why does this thing have any value? Because you think it has value, and it's usable, and it has a utility kind of value to it. I mean, it's easy to transfer this from person to person, and there has to be some kind of cost given up to go into that asset to give it value. So that's kind of where the miners come in, is that they're giving up electricity, and they're giving up their computers or servers, whatever it might be, to give work through just computational power to give these things value. And then the market decides upon how much value they want to add on top of that, because really they should just be whatever the electricity costs are at that point. And I guess that's one of the huge issues, is that getting people to understand that you don't have to have a literal piece of paper or a little gold coin to show that it has any value. And that's one of the big things I think with this kind of research I'm doing next semester, I hope to really dive deeper into. You could always apply kind of the 6 characteristics of money that you learned in Econ 101 or 104, whatever it might be. But I think it's more abstract in this case.
What are the 6 characteristics
I was just
of
going to say.
Oh, God, you're going to quiz me.
This is a test.
I fell asleep through that class.
Yeah, so accountability. So you know what $1 means. I know what $1 means. You can visualize kind of the relative worth of that.
The unit of account.
Yep, unit of account. Durability. So silk or anything that can be destructed easily is not very good money. Divisibility, which Bitcoin's very, very good at because it has 8 decimal points, or 8 zeros.
8 decimal points would be kind of silly.
Yeah, I guess 8, a millionth of a unit.
1.0.0.0.
Yeah.
It's a bad joke. I know what you mean. Places, not points. I saw that on somebody made the same mistake on Reddit today. Where like it has, it will just add an extra decimal point.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. Never mind. I'm being silly.
I get it. Like digit.
And I think portability is one.
Right.
So I mean, like the island of Yap. I mean, using huge ton-sized rocks probably wasn't a very great idea. But it worked for them, so that's fine. And then uniformity, in terms of all these things are worth the same amount. Which at this point, Bitcoin technically isn't very good at, because there's a lot of arbitrage, and in one market it's worth a little more than the other market. So I think that is something that's going to be evened out with kind of the inflow of capital. And then limited supply, in terms of you can't have infinite supply of it, which a lot of people would debate that. I mean, our current monetary system isn't. Is that we technically have an unlimited supply, if you want to use the idea of central banking.
Our current monetary system fails at being money much more than Bitcoin does.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
that's one of the things I really find interesting. I think I've outlined in the email is that, I mean, could this be used in kind of a huge kind of governmental idea? And then lastly, acceptability. So, and that's growing and growing and growing. So I think it is fitting those characteristics quite nicely.
It's brilliant. I'd like to congratulate the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah, and that's also, I think, kind of a interesting aura around it.
Yeah, very
We
smart.
never
I mean,
asked.
if you're going to be delivering this extraordinary new system to the universe, I can get why you might want to be anonymous.
Are you Satoshi Nakamoto, Derek?
You sound a little knowledgeable.
No, I'm not nearly smart enough, trust me.
So really, nobody knows this person. I mean, that's amazing
I mean,
to me. It's like a
I guess
legend.
The community, was it Gavin that had me? He talked to him. in the
Who's
very
Gavin?
early-
And who talked?
One of the main developers for Bitcoin Core, I believe.
He probably couldn't see his face, I take it.
No, it was all on I think it was like IRC or on the forum. But yeah, I don't know if it'd be good or bad at this point. I think most would be bad, just for themselves or himself or herself.
Yeah,
wherever it
certainly
might
for
be.
your health and well-being.
Yeah. But there also is the aspect, I mean, that person has whatever amount of money is in their Genesis or kind of the beginning wallet. And I do think that is something that's a negative kind of connotation, is that they're holding this huge amount of money. And I mean, it's never touched, it's never been sent anywhere. So who knows? But I can tell you, I am very much not the person, because I would have been a ripe young age of 12 years old when it was released. So
Got any ideas?
in terms of who, where, and
If you got a free play to guess, and if you were right, you won $1,000. What would
1,000
you?
Bitcoin.
1,000 Bitcoin.
yeah, I mean, I was asked the question. I mean, if you look at the internet, it was developed by DARPA. I mean, I don't think this is as complex relative basis to that. So I don't think it was some huge group of people that was needed. And I don't think you keep that as anonymous and as secret as it is. So I do think it is an individual or a very, very small number of people. I'm going to say I want to think it was somebody somewhere in the world that was in some kind of economy that was just extremely bad and like dictatorial. Because I think that would just be kind of a fairy tale, if you will, in terms of that. It was something that they did on an entrepreneurial kind of idea of that they were solving the problem that they were having in terms of they couldn't have kind of financial freedom, if you will. And I guess the cool thing about this, and so many parallels that are drawn with the internet, is that this is the first thing that really is like an entire tide lifting everybody up, and that it aspires extremely nicely to the kind of the financial world, the markets of the world, the big corporations of the world, keeping it completely apolitical, and it also helps everybody in the middle class in terms of whatever they need to do for financial stability, and also helps with the whatever the huge number is, $2 billion or 2 billion people that don't have a bank or trust a bank enough to store their wealth. And I think that's something that is powerful, and B, also why so many parallels are drawn with the internet. So I would like to think it was somebody in some of these societies that wasn't able to have any kind of financial freedom or wealth freedom. But I don't know. It was, in hindsight, I mean, it's not a super complicated idea.
Maybe he's an alien.
Yeah, who knows?
They say Vitalik is from the future. Just like too smart.
If you talk to him, you would probably think the same. He's a crazy guy. But we need those kind of people. So. And
this is the person you're speaking of him like this is the person you were talking about in Chicago who.
Yep.
And so for people like me, this person who lives in the future and is mind blowing. What is his role right now?
He's the main developer and kind of founder of Ethereum. So he's developing out all of the Ethereum stuff.
Okay. What's his name?
Vitalik Buterin.
Wow. Vitalik. What is that?
He's
Slavic?
Norwegian? Swedish? Norwegian? One of the two.
Oh. And just to put in perspective, he was like 16 when he wrote the paper.
See?
Yeah. He's not much older than I am. He's very young.
You could have been 12 when this happened. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's very, very young. And I mean, he has funding from the biggest banks and the biggest names in the world. So not doing too shabby.
Yeah.
Or not doing too bad, I should say.
I want to look that guy up.
Yeah.
He's a person we can look up and you obviously talk to like a regular person. He's not mysterious in the shadows just yet.
That a secret group of para-governmental organization in England. That's possible for Satoshi.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't it you?
Governmental agency in England maybe wants to get back to being the take the USD down a little bit. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's Hal Finney. Who knows? No idea.
Mm.
I'm going for alien or man from the future.
Who knows?
Could
it might
be
be some AI. That'd be pretty interesting.
Oh, that would be, wouldn't it?
That would just come full circle.
Yeah, it seems like that's definitely an element in here. You get to have your car gets its own rights. It makes choices and has babies. Sounds like a step forward for AI.
So, do you think this will all lead to Skynet?
No fate, but what you choose for yourself.
Yeah.
Artificial
Another
lives
Sarah
matter.
said. Artificial lives matter.
Derek, where can people learn a little bit more about you?
Coinigy, of course. There's blurbs on there. I don't have a Twitter, to be honest with you. I try to keep away from that stuff. I have a LinkedIn if you're all curious to search me on there. But other than that, mostly keeping busy with the Coinigy stuff and then school. But yeah, always happy to discuss or have some coffee about it. You can always shoot me an email, which is on my LinkedIn, or send me a text as well. So that would be my primary source of communication.
I hear you can also do microbrews instead of coffee. We're in Milwaukee, after all.
Are you a native Wisconsinite?
I was actually born right outside of New York City and Connecticut, and grew up in southwestern Connecticut / kind of Manhattan. And then I moved here with my family. What was that? 2003. So kind of post 9/11 and everything, we came here, and my dad was originally from Madison, so that is why we ended up in the good old Midwest.
That's a whole other story, but I would love to hear it someday. Imagining seeing Wisconsin through the eyes of somebody who's accustomed to more Manhattan.
Yeah, I do love it though. So
Madison
but I
is
do wanna-
awesome. Super
I do
great
wanna
place
get
to
there.
live.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Going down to the Union tomorrow. Well, I'm gonna get some Z's.
Thanks for
It is
coming on.
late there. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
so much. It was really inspiring to have you on.
Thank you for the email, the Blue. I appreciate it. Always happy to do another one if needed. So
Oh, definitely, we're gonna need updates.
you guys are doing some cool stuff, and I do think it's important to keep this going and trying to get as many as you can on here. So
Preach.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks again.
You've been enlightening.
Thank you. You as well.
Right on. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
There was a FBI director that was talking about chemtrails the other day.
Is that so? Tell me. Tell me.
I don't remember. It was on like Twitter or something. It was like one of the top trending
Yeah.
Twitter thing like 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah, I see it all over. That it's like I honestly I don't see anywhere where anybody's denying it. I see nothing but people admitting it. That's interesting. I've never seen it been like debunked. I guess I also don't go on Snopes, but I don't believe Snopes anymore. So there.
Yeah, so supposedly the Snopes is not what it used to be either.
No, not at all. Which makes sense. I mean, you really have to. I don't even know how that was set up. Like, boy, that's kind of another whole other. How is it? How is the blockchain in and of itself, just the way that it is sort of a way to verify something? Correct. I mean, you're saying to me this sort of you can actually trust things on the internet theoretically with this system.
You could always trust that with the blockchain that you can trust that at some point in time something existed. So you can, if something was in that block that that was mined, then you know that whatever in that block happened at that time.
It's undeniable.
Undeniable. There's no way to fake it. I mean, there is a way, and that's to spend like a whole bunch of money, billions and billions of dollars to like get better mining equipment than all the other participants in the network, and outwork them. Like that's what it's called, where these computers are running. They do quote unquote work. Just basically useless computations on their computer in order to find a nonce is what it's called. It's basically like the exact opposite. If you were to gather receipts of a bunch of transactions and look for an even number, like in 10 or 20 or 30, the difficulty increases. So so like you would look for leading zeros in the nonce. The reverse equivalent of that would be look for, something that's an even 10, and difficulty would go up an even 100. And the difficulty would go up an even 1,000.
The difficulty of this conversation went up for me.
Yeah,
I will say,
one.
so what you're saying is that there could be like let's just say there's a guy sitting somewhere with a hairless cat in a hollowed out volcano who's listening to you, and he's like, oh, so if I have enough money, I can buy out the best mining equipment and I can make an evil blockchain.
Sounds like the Virgin American guy on his island.
Oh, I don't even.
He seems
Shoot,
like a
I didn't
cool
mean to
guy,
actually
but-
profile a real bad guy.
I don't know. He's not bad.
Yeah, like if you,
Allegedly.
I wouldn't dare single out any. No,
Ergo.
And so it takes more and more money the further back the block is as well. So you can, fairly inexpensively in the millions of dollars, go back a block or two. But each block requires, an equivalent amount of work.
is there a trail of that of dirty deeds going back with your fancy equipment?
Yeah.
Not if you're Hillary Clinton.
Relevant joke.
if you give out secrets of the government for the public good, you are exiled to Russia and treated as a traitor. But if you do it for your own personal benefit, you can be president.
Yep. I hear Russia's not so bad anymore anyway. It's kind of like the good guys.
What do you guys think of a UBI?
What is that? Some kind of
universal basic income.
Oh.
That sounds like New World Ordery.
Oh, yeah? Is that your first instinct?
Yeah. With all these like blockchain things, there's always a bit of New World Ordery to it if you get, if you extrapolate further down the line. But it doesn't necessarily have to be New World Ordery. It's an interesting concept, and I think you could maybe build a blockchain with a UBI built into it. So you can have like a blockchain that generates, new tokens, every year or so, every month, or however you wanted to do it. And provided somebody was able to prove that they are alive some way, you can do that with a blockchain. It's not impossible to do. We have records right now. It's like mother and father sign and a doctor signs, and that's like proof. Well, you can just put that on the blockchain, and now you have proof that you're alive. And provided you can prove that, you could build a blockchain that would possibly, give out a universal basic income, a small amount of money that would be all that was required to live off of. And that frees people from, frees them to do the things that they want to do. And it's kind of an interesting concept. I think, most of the people in the space are immediately against it. Most people in the greater outside the space are immediately against it as well. But I just find it such an interesting concept. It would be cheaper than if we didn't use blockchain and did like a UBI in the States, it would be cheaper than all the welfare programs that we have. I would imagine.
Probably, yeah. Cut down on so much crap. But what is the skepticism? I'm so Pollyanna. I don't even know where I haven't even figured out yet what the skepticism is about.
Which skepticism?
As long as they don't pay you by a chip that's in your left hand.
Yeah, I'm cool. That's not happening.
Is that a biblical reference?
No, it's a real
It's
world
an RFID
thing.
reference.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's
and
a real
also
thing.
biblical, yeah.
I suppose.
Oh, okay.
But no, what you said, Steve, that everybody's pretty much immediately against it.
Well, I mean, it goes counter to so even Bill Gates would get this UBI. Yeah.
So what's wrong with that?
And so you say well, he doesn't need it. He has gazillions of dollars.
Right.
But why not? Why not? Just give everybody a basic living wage.
Right. And if you want to have more, you can make more.
If you want to have more, you can make more. And I find it interesting. I think that as we automate things more and more, there may not be work. Even people who want to be gainfully employed may not be able to because all farming is automated, all of cars are driving themselves. Everything is automated. It's possible in the near future that could happen. I don't know how soon, but it's certainly possible.
Somebody will have to unclog the toilets.
Right. And it's somebody will have to take out the garbage, and somebody and people will enjoy teaching philosophy, and people will enjoy creating artwork, and people will enjoy pursuits.
That's a great idea.
Nobody's ever going to enjoy that toilet shit, though.
No, if it's your family's shit, maybe you can do it as a sense of duty. But when it's someone else's, you're like,
duty.
I gotta be making more money than what I'm getting paid to do this. That's coming from a maintenance worker's mouth.
It is actually. It's kind of funny you put it in that way, but I was gonna joke that it's always. It's never, even if it is your family, it's never something you want to do. But I've had lots of jobs. I'm kind of a shit expert. And I've had so many jobs where I've had to deal with so much actual shit.
You ever say, I don't make enough money for this shit?
Never happened. And I got paid literally like $1.19 an hour for doing it.
Or like waitressing?
No, I'm talking about actually pulling poop out of people's bottoms. And then
That is a shit
wipe
job.
it, like I'm talking about poo exploding in a room and having it be all over my person.
I think there should be a smart contract add-on for people who deal with poop. Like just as a basic, you know
I'm
what I
part
mean?
of the poo program.
Like, let's give them an extra little bit here. A few more bits.
But that's just it. Steve was talking about people will pursue things for the joy of it, philosophy or whatever. You would not think that anyone on planet Earth would pursue the poop. Yeah, the poop business.
Gandhi didn't deal with poop. Martin Luther King
Gandhi
didn't,
would have done
didn't really.
that. I know, but that is almost. It's so
sorry.
swear to God that it is. That is. Those were some of the best times of my life, and on some of that's the one I vibrated at my highest.
Well, there you go.
Was when I was
You
cleaning
didn't-
up shit.
You didn't know until
It's like
after.
alchemy. We're getting there. We'll evolve.
Sorry, Steve. We kind of ruined your whole
Did we?
thought process there.
I kind of
but
like the poop talk.
I like the idea of a UBI.
I have a scatological mind. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't see anything. My first instinct is that sounds perfectly legit to me. Makes all the sense in the world. If you want to make as much money as you can, well, then use your brain and your ingenuity to supplement it any way you please. But everybody has a basic sort of level of sustenance so that nobody... I think that would serve immensely to cut down on people going out and taking it.
Everyone would be so much just more happy, content.
Yeah, I mean, you can
have
that
more
stress-
time resting and relaxing and
Right.
not being anxiety ridden.
Yep. We all get to change our DNA so that we're not scrambling like a bunch of animals going out and trying to take other people's stuff because we don't have enough. We believe we have scarcity when we really don't. There's no scarcity on this earth. There's abundance, and it's only because we believe it. It's like the way we talk about money. It's all in how we think of it. I think that's really brilliant. I still haven't kind of figured out what's the new world ordery part of it, though.
Well, I mean, if you were to have a worldwide UBI, you would have to tax people. You know, you would have to have an organization that would collect the funds to then distribute them. Anytime you add that level of bureaucracy, you know, there's it always starts out with know the best of intentions, but it mainly just goes to the fat cats who are able to rework and
totally hear you on that one.
Redistribute the funds that are earmarked for the needy to themselves.
Yeah. So here's my proposition to solve that one. Write it right into the code. Don't need it to be a worldwide standard. Don't need giant centralized government for it. It's just a concept that's all over the place, and your own little area. You get your you get little subdivisions of. Have we divided into those little divisions yet, where you can sort of like have a community where this is if you're part of the blockchain community, isn't it basically like agreeing to this particular code? Right? Am I wrong?
Is that when they drop Soylent packages from a drone?
That guy is still doing his stuff, and he is trying to convince people that it's like a serious endeavor. I wonder if he reworked his website or not yet.
Yeah.
Is he total
Hermes
fake?
City?
I just wanted him on the podcast so bad.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know
I
why
want
he
to do
never came
Walkabout. I would have used his services. Forget you. You trying to be mean? Forget it. I'm not gonna get I'm gonna get my Soylent from someone else.
I don't even trust Soylent.
No, I really wouldn't either. I just got the name Soylent. I still think there's people in it.
They still have the old website up. I guess the original book the Soylent didn't have people in it.
The book?
Like that was
something Charlton Heston made up at the end for
the movie
kicker?
did. I guess so. Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Well, wait a minute. What's the climax of the book then? I mean, isn't that?
I don't know. Let me Wikipedia this shit.
It just wasn't good enough. Didn't have enough zing at the end.
It's not as nutritious as you thought. Doesn't have the same Heart-wrenching.
Oh man, that's so funny.
So the book was called Make Room, I guess.
That's the what Soylent Green was based off of?
The 1966 science fiction novel written by Harry Harrison, exploring the consequence of unchecked population growth on society. Wait, no, so where is this thing?
That's a weird topic.
So, like, the novel was the basis of the 1973 science fiction movie Soylent Green, although the movie changed much of the plot and theme and introduced cannibalism as the solution to feeding people.
Hey.
So it seems like I've never read the book or seen the movie. I know the quote, like the big ending is that this healthy, nutritious drink is just how they deal with overpopulation by eating people.
Mm-hmm.
But the plot of the book did not include cannibalism, as far as I can tell.
Funny.
No word?
Yeah.
Have you ever read the book, How to Increase Your IQ by Eating Smart Children?
I
It's
have.
banned.
You are what you eat.
I'm pretty sure it's satire.
There's a book out there that's called that.
Yeah.